Join us for Reimagine Buildings 25, our global online conference this June 12th, or June 13th if you're in New Zealand, Australia, or Asia. This isn't just another event. It's a global gathering of the people building what's next. We're bringing together the doers, the visionaries, and the quietly revolutionary, those who are ahead of the curve in retrofits, new construction, and the future of low-embodied carbon materials and climate-positive building systems, past, present, future. From real-world retrofit wins to high-performance new builds to the boldest ideas in next-gen materials, it's all here, one place, one time. And you won't just watch it happen, you'll be part of it as you connect with others on the same path. Show up, be inspired, and leave with clarity, momentum, and a community that has your back. Register for Reimagine Buildings 25 today, the conference where we reimagine what's possible and level up to build a future where we can thrive. Visit PassiveHouseAccelerator.com for more.
There's two excuses that are holding everybody back. Is one is when the public asks for better, we'll do better. And then the other thing is if the law changes and makes us do better, then we'll do better. And it's like, you're still doing minimum legal stuff. I think that's unfair to place that burden on the general public.
Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out PassiveHouseAccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast.
Well, welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, coming to you from Auckland in New Zealand.
And I'm Zach Semke, coming to you from Seattle, Washington.
How's everything in Seattle, Zach?
Seattle is beautiful today and should be a nice weekend. We have a long weekend coming up. So looking forward to spending some time up actually in San Juan's, San Juan Islands, with family. How about for you? Getting
out of town, enjoying the outdoors. Yeah. I seem to be spending a lot of time out with events. I don't know if it's just event season here or what's going on, but been hanging out with builders recently, which is always fun. And got a few other events coming up, talking to more these are sort of mainstream events. I'm talking to builders who are just out there building houses, and I do find that quite interesting, finding out what's going on for them, and what life is like for a builder running their own business, and the kind of things that that concerns them and that they're interested in. And one of those things is sustainability, apparently, because the organisation that I was attending an event with just this last week, they did a membership survey, and they said that 70% of their clients are very interested in sustainability. Much fewer were apparently prepared to pay for sustainability in their new home. But following from that, I actually asked a question, which was, what is sustainability? What does that mean? What are they referring to when they ask their members about that? And two of the big ticket items were construction waste, and then the second one was carbon, which I found really interesting because I didn't think that mainstream builders were all that concerned about carbon, but turns out a lot more people are starting to ask about carbon, and particularly embodied carbon, upfront carbon, which I found very interesting and quite reassuring in some ways that people are starting to think about life cycle assessment. And of course, construction waste is a big component of that, because if you just reduce construction waste, then you not only reduce your build costs, but it also goes a long way to reducing that upfront carbon. So interesting stuff going out there in the sort of not necessarily passive house world, but it's certainly just in the building industry in general.
That's great to hear. That really is. Yeah.
And I caught up this week with a friend of mine who's an architect down south, just south of Auckland in Hamilton, which we'll get into very soon. But before we do that, we've got a few people to thank.
Indeed. I'd like to thank Rockwell North America for being our sponsor of the week and making everything possible for us this week at Passive House Accelerator, including this episode of the Passive House podcast. Thank you, too, to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Ingui Architecture, Partel, Rockwell North America, Zolo Windows. And thank you to our champion sponsors, Bewizo, Cascadia Windows and Doors, European Architectural Supply, Thacro, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, LG Air Conditioning Technologies, and Source 2050.
Awesome. Now, Sharon Robinson is an architectural designer here in New Zealand, and she is fairly well known around my circles. If I talk to people and I mention Sharon, most people will have heard about her because even though she lives outside of Auckland in one of our smaller cities in Hamilton, she is very present online, and she's very active with social media and has been doing a lot of particular video work in the last few years, doing lots of really good educational short videos on LinkedIn, Facebook, even TikTok, as she mentions in this chat, and that's really helped her not just get her name out there, but also spread some really good ideas about Passive House, Homestar, and just designing to a higher standard, the benefits of doing that. And the other thing that we dive into in this is the idea of what I referred to as standard plans, but she pulled me up on that, and we had a bit of discussion about her preferred term instead of using that idea of a standard plan for a repeated design. So listen out for that. And so I hope you enjoy this. This is my chat with Sharon Robinson of Smart Living Spaces. Welcome, Sharon Robinson. Great to talk to you. Can you tell people where in the world you are? Just describe your location.
Sure, I am located in Hamilton, in New Zealand.
And where is that? For people that aren't familiar with Hamilton, how would you describe it?
How would I describe it? In terms of climate, it's inland and foggy. I'm lucky, I live near the Waikato River. Low-lying, quite humid, and I would say fairly tropical for New Zealand in the sense that it does get quite humid and hot in summer, and it can get quite cold in winter. And it's a growing city too. I sort of liken it to being a teenager that's found its legs. Like there's some great development that's happening around Hamilton. So yeah, it's not a bad place to live.
I guess it's a bit of a sibling to a very small sibling to Auckland, connected by a railway line. I'm not sure how many people use that, but I'm certainly hearing of people moving further and further south from Auckland to live in more affordable places closer to Hamilton. But yeah, like I say, growing city.
It's because it's smaller. I think it's got the opportunity to learn from Wellington and learn from Auckland, and hopefully, solve problems before they happen. But it's not as affordable as it once was. So in terms of it being a cheaper younger sibling to Auckland, I don't know how much cheaper, but yeah.
Is your work just in that area, or do you go further afield with your clients?
Mostly Waikato. I mean, for architecture, you really need to be able to visit the site and also meet people face to face. I think that's critically important with projects, particularly bespoke projects. So tend to be around the Waikato area. But I've done projects up in Auckland, certainly.
How do you describe yourself when you meet people? What do you describe yourself as?
Well, I'm an architectural designer, certified passive house designer, and homestyle designer and assessor. I guess that's the boring title, but I I have a tagline for my business, which is architectural design with people and planet in mind. I've always been focused on sustainability. So my mission really is to create healthy, comfortable, energy efficient homes and affordable homes for everyday people. So I'm an architectural designer for people, I like to think.
Yeah.
Without sounding boastful.
How did you get into architecture in the first place?
I was drawing house plans as a 7-year-old. So this was kind of my calling, but it wasn't conscious until I was 18. I did career guidance. My mum was very good. She took us to career guidance. My sister and I did career guidance counselling. And, you know, at 18, you don't know what you want to do. So I did all the aptitude tests and they said, you know, colours and design you're pretty good at. And a small confession is I was given a book of all the careers that I could choose from. And I was supposed to read it and I didn't. And they asked me what I wanted to be. And I just said, an architect. And she said, oh, that fits. I was like, sure, thank God I passed. And then I just enrolled in Wintec here in Hamilton. And well, it was called something else in those days. And just started down the path and just kept going.
And have you always worked for yourself, or what happened after you graduated?
So after I graduated Wintec, I worked for a small housing company here in Hamilton. So got a well-rounded idea of business, and then I hopped on a plane and did my OE in London for a couple of years and worked for a large landscaping firm. So that was an education in outdoor architecture, if you like, creating spaces outdoors. And then when I came back to New Zealand, I was like, I really want to go further down this architecture route. But I worked for some larger practices here in Hamilton, Chow Hill and Tanis Pursuit Architects and DLA Architects for a while, and then Noel Jessup Architecture for a short stint. So they were a mix of commercial architecture, healthcare, and then and Tanis was probably the one at Power that ignited that residential, quality residential, and I was like, well, this is really where I want to sit. So in 2014, I took the leap and started my own business and haven't looked back since. It's the longest job I've had working for myself. Yeah.
When did you first come across Passive House? Do you remember when the first time you heard it was?
I do, because I wrote a post-it on the back of I've got a sliding door that's got, and I put Passive House, ? Because I was trying to ask myself whether it was worth it. I knew about other systems like Homestar and Greenstar because they were just coming out at the time. So that must have been about 8 years ago. And I was questioning, you know, should I do this? And then because the course went online, it just became so much more accessible and the opportunity presented itself. And, you know, you just had it was just like, yep, let's do it. And that was in 2022. It was like, now's the time to do this. It just felt right.
Did you learn anything like that, or even about sustainability or energy efficiency when you were first doing your architecture training?
No, I mean there were studio projects at Unitec that you could do. Like I would always choose the sustainability orientated one rather than the classical historical ones, you know, if I had a choice.
Right.
But there was a little bit in terms of building science, but nothing to the extent that Passive House explores. I mean, when I started doing that Passive House course, I was like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. I've been kidding myself that I can design architecture and do architecture. Oh my God, you know, like it was kind of that moment when you go, I thought I was reasonably good at what I do. And now I've just stepped into this realm of what? I think it's different now. I mean, this was what, 15 years ago, so that I graduated from Unitec. So I think that there's probably more of a focus on it, but no, I didn't learn anything like that in architecture.
But I mean, in the Passive House training, when you get right down to calculating assembly R values, you know, with component parts and products and materials, I don't know if people do that even these days in architecture school.
Probably not in architecture school. I mean, it's like anything. You go to a tertiary education place to then get a job to learn more, because there is the theory of learning about something, and then there's the actual practice of learning about how to do it. So I don't think we ever stop learning in the architecture and construction industry. But it'd be lovely if there was more of an introduction to it, because it's a lot to soak in.
Yeah.
When you're learning all that stuff.
You've spent quite a lot of time, energy, creating some great content online. What's the driver for that? Or tell us what you've been doing and what was the driver for that?
I discovered that I was really good at selling my architectural services to other architects and designers.
Right.
They don't teach you. I don't like being a salesperson. That's not naturally my personality. But I began to realize that I was speaking a language that people didn't understand. And if I wanted to get people to build better, I had to make it tangible to them. And I'm still learning how to do that, because when you sit in this highly, this design lingo and also a highly technical environment, you tend to speak to that all of the time. So I had to shift how I spoke to people and who I was speaking to. The big driver was my clients are everyday people. They're not, people say, where do you find architectural clients? Well, they're everywhere and they know where, and they're all at different levels, but they're certainly not in your field, because they wouldn't need you if they were in your field. Yep. So speaking to people about, comfort, health, sometimes it can be a bit intangible because we experience architecture, so we can only relate to what we've experienced. If you haven't experienced a passive house, how would you know that it was worth it? And also there's lots of stories about it being unachievable, elitist. It's you don't like that term high performance because it suggests award-winning kind of. So how do we speak it and bring it in expensive? How do we bring it into the everyday realm? Because everyone should be living in a healthy, comfortable, affordable home. We just have to show them how it's possible. And by that, we have to show them what the issues are with what they think is quality. And so I've been in this massive journey of how do I unpack that, and almost speak to things that are logical to me, that I'm so logical that I don't feel the need to say it, but not realizing that someone else actually needs to hear it. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what does that look like in the real world? What have you been doing?
So every month I have been releasing a vlog. This is my 2025 focus. Explaining to people about a lot of things, breaking down. I did a 3-month series where I took the building code, I took Homestar, and I took Passive House, and I compared them to the 7 things that I highlighted 7 issues. So 7 problems. This is how this solves it, and so how this is how solving it. And every month I have short form videos that I put out on social media, just little snippets. We live in a very busy world, so just giving people a little bit of a nugget to then put in the back of their brain, and then, started planting a seed. So that's what I've been doing every month. And then of course I have other content that goes out, but that's my focus really, every month, and to shift it up a little bit, just to expand.
So any particular platforms that have been working well for you?
Believe it or not, TikTok.
Oh yeah.
So Facebook and TikTok, also YouTube is starting to grow for me, so that's something that I'm starting to get into. And LinkedIn's always been a fantastic platform for me. I really made an effort with it starting in 2020. Just the human connections and the wealth of knowledge that's sort of shared on there. So those are sort of the 4 that seem to be working for me quite well.
Is it quite time consuming?
I try and squash it into 4 days a month to do. Yeah, it is time consuming, but it's worth its weight in gold when somebody rings you up and they say you were talking about this, and you don't have to explain it all to them because they've consumed that content.
Right.
So yeah, it's beneficial. I mean, we're not going to get people to build better if they don't understand how and they don't understand why.
Yeah.
So
That seems like a valuable mindset to have, because I imagine a lot of architects in a similar situation be hesitant to spend time talking to a camera. They feel like they should be out talking to potential clients or doing drawing work and doing design work. But if it means explaining things once and then not having to spend that time with people one-on-one every single time, then that could potentially be quite a big time saver.
yeah, in the long run. I also am a small business owner. So that message about what I give out, that people do business with me.
Yeah.
People want to do business with people. So they want to know what to expect. And it's about building trust too on an online space, because it can be quite an impersonal space. So how do you get people comfortable and familiar with knowing not only what you do, but how you do it and why you do it, and the type of person that you are, so that they can become more comfortable with asking questions and approaching you, because they kind of feel like they've got a connection with you. So
what are some of the projects you've been working on and working on at the moment?
well, I've got a renovation at the moment that I just finished a concept for. I just sent it off this morning. Interesting conversations about, how much of the structure to remove, but also conversations around, with this particular one, it's rural. Like, how do we make this house so energy efficient that we don't need to spend a huge amount on solar panels, and how can we get not just a ventilation system in here, but make it a heat recovery ventilation system? So that is one of them.
Are those that you mentioned a few things about solar panels, proper ventilation? Are people coming to you wanting those things, or are they things that you're having to tell people that they should want them?
There's something I have to introduce to them, which is where that talking to everybody on the level that they're at with, in terms of power bills, power bills, water bills, overheating, because everyone just knows about insulation. We've bandied around that a lot.
Right.
The public know about that. There's a fantastic PR campaign out there already. But people fundamentally come to me for a new build or a renovation first and foremost, because that's what an architect or an architectural designer does, So you start with that conversation, and then you start addressing those other issues in terms of the experience and what they're investing in. Because when you're building or renovating, it's the largest, it could be the biggest financial liability of your lifetime, or the largest, your largest financial asset. You want to make smart choices. So weaving it into that and you've got to meet people with where they're at, because if you put something in that they don't have tangibility, or they're not comfortable with, they'll shut down. And it'll get cut out straight away. So,
and what about solar panels? Because people see those and they're sexy. I think you were saying before that you try and improve the envelope to reduce the amount of solar panels. Is that a bit of a challenge? Do people just assume that sustainability equals solar panels?
We'll just assume sustainability equals solar panels. Like, we live in a very commercialized world, right? So there's this perception that building better or high performance is about adding onto an existing design.
Adding stuff,
right? Instead of actually redesigning stuff. So I have a business contact that does smart wiring, and he said to me, the wiring system has the ability to reduce the amount of electricity that you're using, because you actually lose electricity in transfer. There's that amazing product called Smart Meter, which is coming up from Basis, that smartly distributes all of that energy. And that concept's been around for a few years, of where you divert energy when it's available, and what are primary, secondary, and tertiary activities within the home. And then if you've got an energy efficient envelope, so that reduces the amount of electricity you need right in the first place for heating, cooling, whatever. Why you don't need to put so many solar panels on your roof. So suddenly you're reducing the capital investment that you need to make on those panels, because they'll outdate and need to be updated. Yeah, so that it's just not one thing, but it's a combination of everything that you put together. But it's slowly explaining that to people in a way that makes it tangible and makes logical sense to them.
Yeah.
Mm.
With your marketing that you're doing, social media stuff, and also now sort of word of mouth, do you find that people come to you and you don't have to convince them as much? Like, are you getting the type of clients that you want to get, or are you still getting people who just need an architect and not really aware of energy efficiency or passive house?
More and more, I've got people that are coming to me for looking for that kind of stuff, because that's the stuff I talk about all the
Yep.
time. There are always people that will want sort of the minimum, the base minimum. There are some people that just come for an architectural service and are open-minded enough to not know what that looks like. But the base minimum stuff has dropped away, which is great, because it was destroying my soul.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm positively contributing towards this. If I'm like, we're supposed to be agents of social change, that was banded around at architecture school. Like, this is not social change. This is not positively impacting people's lives. You know, because back when I first started my business, I was doing a lot of contract work for housing companies, as you do, to start up, and I was just thought, these are just big expensive boxes to build and to run. And that's partly the reason for doing Passive House, was like, I need to be responsible for changing what I'm doing. So and I need the messaging to encourage people to be more aware of how we can be doing better. So it's slowly starting to shift.
Tell us what you've been working on and what you've got, what you've put out in the world recently in terms of your standard plans.
I don't like that word, standard plans.
Oh, okay. What do you call them?
I call them pre-designed concepts, because the issue I have with standard plans is probably a similar issue that you have with the word high performance, and I agree with you on that high performance. Is a standard gives and this is the public perception, right? Because we talk about a code compliant house, and people think that's a quality, healthy, comfortable home. It's not, it's legal. Standard plans tend to infer the fact that all the design work is done.
Right.
But a plan is simply a 2D representation of the spatial arrangements. Plans are sets of instructions. So if you're not clear on what it is that you're constructing, how can you standardize the instructions if you need what you're constructing to be site specific, to actually work with the climatic conditions and the environment that it's been put in? So I catch myself sometimes too slipping into that standard plans lingo, because it's so ingrained in our society as a term. So pre-designed concepts, they are at the moment 6 little designs, starting with 1-bedroom units. And the reason why I started with one small is we know passive house is incredibly hard to get right small. And I thought, well, let's start on the hardest one. So the range is called Small Smart Spaces. It's a combination of passive house, homestart, and offsite construction. So I'm involved in offsite New Zealand, which was previously prefab New Zealand. And the thing is that there's lots of people doing amazing things in their bubbles. But if all they're doing is doing their things in their bubbles and taking it to the extreme, it's almost functioning in a bit of an illusion. Like the modular guys in the offsite space, everyone seems to think it's offsite buildings. You just do the whole building offsite. But there's this incredible there's this spectrum in between of systems, panels, pods, and then you can go to the full building. So there's this middle ground. It's the same with the middle ground that you've got between group housing companies and bespoke architecture. People tend to think you've got to choose between the two. What happens if there's middle ground? What happens if you can get pre-designed concepts but still get to take advantage of the benefits of good design and good healthy design? And then of course homestart fitted into that really nicely. So it was really a kit set of parts, to steal Damien Otto's phrase. So instead of letting the client choose the products and drive, because products do impact on performance, let's get a set specification and a set way of putting these things together that I know can work for homestart and passive house. and that also embodies really great offsite products and systems, so that we get an on-site solution that can take advantage and benefit from offsite solutions at the same time. So
does that mean that you have a plan that that's a small house that can get certified to passive house in any climate zone in New Zealand?
With the smaller designs, I'd say that you might be struggling for Queenstown.
Right.
But I mean, I haven't had one of them go for passive house certification, so I can't confidently say yes. But Auckland, because those products and systems that are being used are used in passive house design already through New Zealand, there is the opportunity to absolutely get them right. And get them certified passive house in Auckland or in between. I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible for Queenstown, but it would be challenging, especially on the small ones. Yeah,
but you're setting it up in a way that doesn't set the expectation from the client that it's completely ready to go. That it's a starting point, and you have I like the idea that kit set of parts that you can kind of swap things in and out to, and then get it to a compliant state.
Well, I wouldn't say swap things in and out, but for example, all of these designs have a mechanical heat recovery ventilation unit designed by Steel by Ultron, because we know that it works. The exact specification of that system will suit what the requirements are for the passive house certification of that design. It uses Foreman's panels, because I know that I can change the panel specification without changing the system to suit that climate zone, and it's an easy transition, and we're still dealing with the same people, and we're still dealing with the same process. So there is a step-by-step process on my website for it, and there's various consultations at various stages where there is part that's already been designed, and already been modeled, and we know where it's sitting. And we're in the process of getting them priced too, so we're going to know where they sit in the market. So this is not a race to the bottom. This is what it is. So there's a process of refining the site specific bits that you need for foundations, for bracing, for energy specific requirements, but that you've got the efficiencies of the systemizedness and the we use for a word standardization of how we put that all together and of the specification. It was just because otherwise you leave too much to chance, and I think that's one of the barriers to people using architectural designers and architects, is that they go, I'd love to, but I can't afford to. The fees are really expensive. So if we are repeating proven details, that brings the cost of that documentation down. And if we're integrating passive house certification into the documentation we're providing, that makes it more affordable too. So now we're not having external consultants fees that are incredibly expensive. So it's about finding all those little inefficiencies. They say, take care of the cents and the dollars will take care of itself. It's kind of like, where are the little differences that we can make along the way?
How have you found modeling for overheating risk when you take those designs to different locations and also different orientations?
Overheating's a biggie. It is a real challenge, particularly on the small spaces. I think I just got one of the designs in Auckland to get down past 10%. So that was a real challenge. Within the system, there's always that adjustment for, like it uses stark recessed UPVC joinery, the ambience inline range. But we can change the color of that, which will have an impact on performance. We can change the glazing of that, which will have an impact on performance. So there's an allocation in the process that will deal with that overheating. For that project site specific bit. Because
so you're changing the solid heat gain coefficient on the glass?
Where needed to address that overheating. Because there'll be some sites that will be easier to achieve that on than others. So that's the juggle, that's the customization part of it, which I think you have to have on every project, because you cannot just have building that comes out of a factory and that'll perform as it needs to in every single climate zone.
Yeah.
I mean,
And what about external shading? Do you have any variable options of that?
so I use Levitek. That's another thing, is all the systems, products, businesses I've tried to make New Zealand for that whole
Right.
sustainability drive.
Nice. Yeah.
So Levitek's made here in New Zealand, so they've got various shade options, and that will come up on personal preference. It's finding that balance between accommodating a sense of a client, this is their home, so that they need to have a say in it, but also sort of saying, but this is what you get to choose from. So we reduce the overwhelm. So Levitek have got incredible shading systems. So
Yeah.
I mean,
they're definitely. I guess using a product like Levitek means that it would, I imagine, be seen as an enhancement for the client, not just an additional cost that they have to. It's not a compliance piece; it's a livability enhancement and probably an aesthetic enhancement as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah.
Exciting stuff. Where do you see things going in the next little while? I know it's sort of unpredictable state of the economy and everything else at the moment, but what are your sort of plans for the next few years?
I want to grow small smart spaces. This has been something I've been working on for about 4.5, 5 years quietly in the background. I was sitting at CoLab one year and listening to these guys. I actually presented on Passive House last year at CoLab and listening to people all around, and I was like, there's not many people who are combining all this amazingness that can unlock benefits for everyday people together. And so every time I've told people about small smart spaces, it's in its infancy really, because it was only launched in February this year. And like anything, it's going to develop and grow. Sure. But I think also listening to what other architects and designers are doing, there's a move and a shift to taking architecture from being reactive and almost client initiated to make it more and more proactive. We've got Fletcher Building, you've got is it the Living Box that RTA Studio have done?
Living House,
the Living House. So I think we're all starting to think we can't keep doing traditional architecture the way traditional architecture has been done. And we can't just leave it up to the group home builders for them to always do what they've always been done. So there seems to be an industry appetite for doing better and just wanting to find a way. The builders that are affiliated with small smart spaces, they absolutely loved it. The win-win for them was like, we want some plans to be able to, some designs to show our clients, but we have to go and employ someone to design them for me. And I said, well, no, you don't, because you build and I design. So here, just send them here and we'll make it work. But highly collaborative. So all of the collaborators have been really excited about it because they've got a passion for building better too. And I am encouraged with what I'm hearing in the political spaces with, conversations I know that have been had about energy modeling. I know Brains released a bulletin about ventilation. That's been something that's been on the cards for, honestly, maybe a decade. To finally see the traction with that going. I'm encouraged with people putting out podcasts like this and just saying, let's open up the hood and show people what the real issues are and talk about it. And I think the general public will come around to this is just makes sense. There's two excuses that are holding everybody back. One is when the public asks for better, we'll do better. Well, if they ask for better and you can't do better, they're not going to be coming to you. You're the expert in the field. That's why they're coming to you in the first place. So I think that's unfair to place that burden on the general public. And then the other thing is, if the law changes and makes us do better, then we'll do better. And it's like, you're still doing minimum legal stuff. So don't tell people you give them quality. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that the Building for Climate Change roadmap will come back. I'm also encouraged by those 70 countries, New Zealand included, signing up to the Paris Accord Agreement, despite what some big political people in the world have been threatening to pull out of. So, I'm optimistic. And I think it just needs to be led with more obvious solutions, really.
Where should people go to find out more about what you're up to?
Well, you can find everything on the website, so smartlivingspaces.nz.
Yep.
And if you want to know more about small smart spaces, there is an interactive 3D model that you can hop in and navigate if you want to see what it's all about. There's lots of resources, and the whole process is laid out, as well as the concepts are on there that you can purchase. But just if somebody's wanting to purchase one, just let's have a chat first on the phone call. You can book that on the website. So that's under Small Smart Space Designs, a tab at the top.
Nice.
And yeah, just if you're interested in, just book a chat. Let's have a call. Great things come out of phone calls.
Very good. Hey, thanks a lot, Sharon. Great to chat, and keep up the good work. And that was Sharon Robinson, and you can find her work at smartlivingspaces.nz, where she's got all the links to all the different social media platforms that she's on, including lots of regular videos. You can follow her and comment and see what she's sharing. And also a link to the small smart space designs, which she has available, and you can do lots of like a virtual tour of those and have a look at some renders of quite a big portfolio of designs that she's got on that website. What do you think, Zach?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I thought that she was also a great storyteller. There were some really nice little moments that she kind of painted in her journey toward where she's at now, going all the way back to when she was drawing houseplants as a kid, to the moment when she said, "an architect," when asked what she's going to do, and got some validation there, and lo and behold, that's where she's at now. And I love the image of the Post-it note with "passive house?" ? That kind of got her moving in this direction.
And as I've commented a number of times, we often forget the first time that we heard the term passive house and how long it might be to get from that moment to fully understanding passive house, and then going on to sort of embrace it, and even in some people's cases evangelizing it. And it may take a little while between those events, and sometimes we expect people to just get it immediately when we first describe it to someone. So it's a good reminder to be a bit empathetic to people when we're talking about passive house, particularly for the first time. What are your thoughts on pre-designed concepts or plans that can be repeated? Do you see much of that happening in your part of the world, Zach?
Yes, and there's always the tension though with people wanting to customize, and so I think that there's a real need in order to kind of take advantage of the benefits of having a pre-planned, the kind of cost savings of doing something pre-planned. You actually have to stick with the plan. That's the trick, but I think it makes total sense. And as I dream about doing, for example, a backyard cottage behind our house, I definitely want to do one that is kind of pre-planned, pre-packaged, ideally prefabbed for us, just to try to keep the cost down for that. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, cost is definitely one element, and probably a key element. The other is a certainty of knowing that it's going to work and be delivered, and also time and which is linked to both assurance and cost. One of the issues that we have here is we have a consenting method of getting building permission called multi-proof consenting, but it's very, very rigid. So as soon as you make one small change to that design, even if it's a change to a penetration of the cladding, then it drops out of that process, and then you have to basically get a whole new building consent or permission for that design. So conceptually, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about this idea of having plans that can be repeated, or having a set of specifications that are known to work in certain areas. But it just seems that there are still a few things to iron out to make that really fly, and to get all those benefits that people are looking for around cost and certainty and quick delivery, which I'm sure can be done, because that's how we make pretty much everything else from cars to mobile phones. But we haven't quite figured it out en masse, at least in this part of the world. I know, maybe in Scandinavia and Europe and other places where there is a lot of that sort of factory manufacturing of completely standard houses. So a really interesting space to look at, and I'm really pleased. Sharon's done a lot of work. I know it's taken quite a while to because she's basically front loading a lot of that work as an architect. That's her trade, and she's put in a lot of that time and effort, and then sort of and set up a shop essentially to sell these plans that she's put her IP into. So it was one to watch. We'll see how that goes, and how that general trend goes of people taking a plan that's already there.
I've also heard other practitioners talk about how having a set of pre-designed plans even can also, though, assist in the custom process as well, or that because there are I think that it encourages a kind of thinking where if a client responds with, oh, but I want to do this over here, there's like a pattern. It's kind of a set of patterns that can be then drawn upon in the custom design process that facilitates like a quicker design process. So even in that case, the point was that even when the project strays from one of the, as you say, rigid or whatever, that just one of the pre-designed plans, it can benefit from the process of doing pre-designed plans. I guess so.
Yeah, I've heard that referred to as mass customization, where you have a discrete set of options that are interchangeable, so that you do have flexibility, but that flexibility is constrained within a small selection. And one of the areas that we're working on that at the moment in particular is around shading, because as we're getting better insulation and better insulated envelopes, better air tightness, we're actually finding that overheating is becoming one of the bigger issues in a lot of our climate zones. And the way to solve that is external shading. But external shading is quite site specific, particularly if you take a plan and rotate it slightly, or have a different orientation on the building site. So one of the mass customization solutions for that is to have shading options that are essentially clip-ons that are designed to fit well with the aesthetic of the building, but you can sort of pick and choose where you put them to optimize that shading and reduce the risk of summer overheating. So that's a really good example of having the selections there that mean that every house is going to look slightly different, but everything is pre-designed and you're just clicking the parts together to make it work.
Very cool.
All right, really good stuff. As I mentioned, you can check out Sharon Robinson's stuff over at Smart Living Solutions, and also follow her on various social media platforms. Good one to follow. What have we got coming up, Zach, at the Accelerator?
Yeah, so this week for Passive House Accelerator Live, we have a next up episode of the event called Net Zero When, Net Zero Now. with Dale Holst of Michigan Net Zero Homes LLC and Kristen Cora of Climate Adhesive Sealant. So we're looking forward to that. And then on Thursday, we have a special Passive House Component Spotlight with European Architectural Supply. And they will be doing presenting a tour of the largest Passive House window showroom in America, 2025 New Product Spotlight. And that's with Patrick Mazzula, the president of European Architectural Supply. And then our big event of the year is coming up very soon on June 12th. June 13th for you in New Zealand and Australia. And it's called Reimagine Buildings 25. This is our big global online conference. And Matthew, we are very excited to have you as the host for the third segment of this full day conference, the future segment. So this is going to be past, present, future. So past, we'll be looking at retrofits. Present, we'll be celebrating groundbreaking designs and new construction. And future, we'll dive into next-gen materials, cutting-edge technologies, and the future of resilient climate-positive buildings. So lots of amazing speakers. We're going to be offering PHI, FIAS, and AIA continuing education units, of course. And we have the leading, practitioners and thinkers in building decarbonization and building resilience from around the world coming together for this very special event. So we hope that folks will join us.
Awesome. Yeah, very much looking forward to that. Be fantastic. It was great last year. So great to be able to be redoing that this year. All right. Thank you, Zach. Thanks all to our sponsors. Thank you, our listeners. And we'll be back again next week on Passive House Podcast.